The story of Jesus and the adulterous woman, where he wrote in the sand, found in the Gospel of John chapter 8, has puzzled scholars and believers alike for centuries. Why did Jesus choose to write on the ground instead of immediately responding to the accusations against the woman? What was the significance of his actions, and what deeper message was he conveying through this simple yet profound gesture? In this video, we'll unravel the mystery behind Jesus' writing in the sand and discover the profound lessons it holds for us all. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the bell icon for notifications on future uploads. Let's dive in. She was caught in the act, surrounded by accusers ready to stone her. But then an unexpected act of mercy changed everything. Before Jesus encountered the adulterous woman, he had been in Jerusalem during the Feast of Tabernacles. In those days, the Feast of Tabernacles had a spiritual symbol. As a result, it was a week-long celebration that occurred in the fall, usually in September or October, marking the end of the agricultural harvest season. In the Gospel of John, it's mentioned that Jesus did not initially go openly to the feast, as the religious leaders sought to execute him. However, at a certain point during the feast, he went to Jerusalem in a not very noticeable or obvious way. During this time, Jesus engaged in teaching and discussions with the people in Jerusalem. John 7:14-24 says Jesus was teaching at a special place called the Temple. He talked to the people there, and they were surprised because he knew so much and was smart about the things written in the scripture. In the middle of the crowd, the religious leaders appeared, dragging a woman with them. She was caught in the act of adultery, a sin punishable by stoning, according to the law of Moses. The leaders of the religious community brought this woman to Jesus in a manner that was both shame-filled and humiliating. To state the obvious, there was also a man involved in this very act of adultery. Yet the guilty man was not brought before Jesus for judgment. Was this truly a coincidence? Although adultery was indeed a crime punishable by execution under the law, the criteria for evidence in instances involving the death penalty were very stringent. Multiple witnesses had to be there during the act, and all of those witnesses' testimonies had to be completely consistent. As a matter of fact, virtually no one was executed for the crime of adultery because it was considered to be a very private sin. In this moment, the story of the adulterous woman comes to life. As the accusers stood ready to cast stones, they posed a challenge to Jesus. John 8:4-5, and they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the very act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women to death. So what do you say to do with her? What is your sentence?" With this, they had a secret plan. They wanted to trap him. If Jesus had said, "Let her go," then it would appear that he had violated the law that Moses had written. If he stated, "Execute her for the crime of adultery," then Jesus would appear harsh and perhaps cruel to some people's ears. In addition to this, he would violate Roman law due to the fact that the Romans had denied the right to official execution for crimes related to their religion. This was a problem very much like the one that was posed to Jesus in the book of Matthew when it came to the subject of paying taxes to Caesar. Deuteronomy chapter 22 verse 22 says, "If a man is found sleeping with another man's wife, both the man who slept with her and the woman must die." The law seems strict by today's standards. And right in the middle of this intense situation, Jesus did something really amazing. Jesus stooped down and began writing on the ground with his finger. Jesus ignored the accusers as if he had never heard them. This woman was a tool for the religious leaders who were already wretched men. They capitalized on her against Jesus. They presented her as a sinner before Jesus, but they completely ignored their own wrongdoing in the matter. They clearly did not care about actual righteousness. They claimed that they had caught this woman in the very act of committing adultery, but they did not bring the man who was guilty before Jesus. It was likely that the man was a member of their group, and that they merely employed the woman as a weapon or a pawn in their dispute with Jesus. We read that Jesus stooped down. Jesus' reply was thoughtful and deliberate. Instead of making an immediate verbal response, he stooped down. Then, using his finger, he wrote something on the ground, presumably in the dirt that was on the ground. Jesus did not show any signs of anger or immediate outrage in response to the situation. He did not yell at the woman or at the others who had brought the woman. Jesus paused and stooped down. What Jesus wrote has been a never-ending subject of discussion for instructors, preachers, and commentators for hundreds of years. Some people believe that Jesus did a little more than scribble on the soil. The verb that was translated as to write also has the meaning to draw. Some people believe that Jesus was merely biding his time. Some think that Jesus wrote the passage in the law that condemned the adulterous woman. Some people believe that Jesus penned a verse similar to Exodus chapter 23, verse 1, "Do not put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness." Some people believe that Jesus recorded the names of the accusers. Others believe that Jesus wrote the sins that the accusers committed. Some people believe that Jesus wrote both. Many believe that Jesus followed the Roman court practice of writing out his sentence before he spoke it. The normal Greek word for to write is graphene. However, the word that is being used here is katagraphene, which can mean to write down a record against someone. If this is the case, it's very possible that what Jesus wrote related to the sins of the people who accused this woman. There's absolutely no way of knowing what he wrote. Many people are quite confident that they know, but the simple fact is that the Bible does not tell us. As Jesus bent over to write, he acted as if he did not even hear the accusation against the woman. Perhaps Jesus did not pay attention to them because he disapproved of the evil deed they were doing. It's possible that Jesus ignored them for the woman's sake. After that, he stood up and spoke these unforgettable words, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." In that instant, the crowd's anger turned to reflection. One by one, starting with the oldest, they dropped their stones and walked away. Confronted with their own imperfections, they couldn't pass judgment. They were convicted by what they heard from Jesus. Seemingly, it wasn't what Jesus wrote, though that may have had something to do with it. What Jesus said, more than anything else, was what caused inner turmoil. The fact that these men still had a functioning conscience said a lot about them. They were not heartless. Now they saw their own faults more clearly than the woman's. They went out like a procession. They kept on going out. The woman was by herself with Jesus, waiting to find out what would happen to her. But instead of being punished, she received kindness and forgiveness. With kindness in his eyes, Jesus asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" John 8:10. After she replied that no one had judged her, and then in words that would change her life forever, Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin." John 8:11. In this single moment, the woman experienced a love and acceptance she had never known. She was not just forgiven, but offered a chance for a new beginning. Jesus, in a sense, took her guilt upon himself. He was the only one of them who was free from sin. Being aware of everything, he had the ability to be the one to throw the first stone, but he chose not to. The woman found refuge in connection to Jesus. They got used to the rush that came with exercising their ability to condemn. Jesus knew the thrill of exercising the power to forgive. Jesus sent her away with a call to stop her sin. He sent her away without ever condoning or accepting her sin. Jesus did several things with these powerful words. He recognized that what the woman had done was a sin because he told her to stop sinning. He gave her hope that her life could go on in freedom from sin. The woman needed hope because the consequences of her sin would be severe enough. If she was already married or betrothed, she would be disowned by her community and presumably rejected by her husband. The story of the woman who committed adultery is meaningful across different times and places. This shows how incredibly kind and forgiving Jesus is, and a reminder that no one is beyond the need to be saved from a difficult or bad situation, and that kindness and empathy can transform hearts. Throughout the Bible, we encounter many who had been rejected, sinners, and the forgotten. Yet they were met with God's unrelenting mercy and became passionate followers of Christ. From Mary Magdalene, once plagued by 7 demons, to Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward, and many others. These were individuals touched by Christ's healing love and mercy. Transformed, they dedicated their lives to spreading the message of God's kingdom. Our God doesn't focus on punishing us, but on helping us and giving us another chance to make things right. Imagine a beautiful vase shattered into pieces. Now, picture that same vase, not just glued back together, but restored to even greater beauty. That's a bit like what redemption means. In the Bible, redemption is like restoration. It's about taking something broken and making it whole again. When Jesus was kind and forgiving to the woman who had done something wrong, he didn't just save her from punishment, he offered her a new start. Her life, which was once filled with problems, got better and was fixed. Anyone who's done wrong, the sinner, can still have a better future. And even those who are good, the saints, now have made mistakes in the past. Today we dive deep into the narratives that these transformed lives to uncover the deep implications of God's mercy for all of us. Imagine Jesus as a bridge that connects two things: strict fairness and really deep kindness. He followed the rules of the law, but he also showed the most important part deep inside it. By challenging those without sin to cast the first stone, he highlighted the universal need for mercy. The adulterous woman's story reminds us that while justice is essential, mercy is transformative. The Mosaic Law was not just about following rules, but understanding their deeper purpose to guide humanity toward love, fairness, and redemption. The story of the adulterous woman found in John 8:3-12 is more than just a tale of mercy. It's a powerful revelation of the character of God and a challenge to societal norms. Everyone has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. This particular verse explains that every person has made mistakes and isn't perfect in the eyes of God. Every person, regardless of who they are or where they're from, has done wrong or made mistakes. To fall short of the glory of God suggests that, compared to the perfection and greatness of God, humans haven't reached that standard. Basically, this verse emphasizes the idea that everyone is imperfect and has made errors in their life. It underscores the Christian belief and the need for redemption and forgiveness. Going back to the story of the adulterous woman and her accusers, one by one they depart, leaving the woman alone with Jesus. The only one truly qualified to cast a stone chooses not to. Throughout the Bible, it's evident that God's mercy isn't just about second chances, it's about transformation. According to Titus 3:5, he saved us not because of righteous things we have done, but because of his mercy. This story is about every one of us. In a world eager to cast stones, God offers a hand of mercy, challenging us to both receive and extend it. After all, in the embrace of his mercy, we find our true transformation. Actively, every day, choose mercy. Extend forgiveness where it's hard, show kindness where it's least expected, and love without condition. In doing so, we don't just retell this story, we live it. For those hungry for more, dive into passages like Micah 6:8, which speaks of acting justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly. Let Ephesians 2 remind you of God's great love, and James 2 of the triumph of mercy over judgment. Being a disciple means embracing the mercy that transforms lives. Just as Zacchaeus went from a greedy tax collector to a generous giver, and Mary Magdalene from a tormented soul to a devoted follower, so can we experience transformation through Christ's mercy. Our transformation journey begins with humility, embracing mercy, and stepping into the freedom Christ offers. These lessons, woven into the story of the adulterous woman, guide us to the heart of discipleship. Remember, it's not our perfection that defines us, but our willingness to embrace Christ's mercy, transform, and live out his teachings. Like the adulterous woman, we too can leave behind our burdens, walking towards new beginnings as disciples of Christ.